So we have التدريب الثاني عشر 12th exercise. And I can tell you this page, these two pages should be very important for you guys. If you can, probably print them out and keep it handy because the numbers are very tricky in Arabic. I think I've warned you guys before, the numbers are pretty tricky. They're just only talking about one gender because they're using masculine, right? Muallim and muhandis. So they're not addressing the feminine, but I will mention the feminine version. With the gender, it gets difficult. Yeah, so first I'm going to give you a very simple, the foundation of how the numbers are formed in Arabic language. So you have to know few different layers. The first layer is when you're talking about 1 and 2. And then another category would be where you go all the way from 3 to 10. Then of course you have the 11 and 12 again. So they resemble a little bit 1 and 2. So they have some elements together. And then you have 13 and goes on and on, right? So let's start with 1 and 2. How do we form when we talk about 1 pen, 2 pens, 1 book, 2 books, 1 car, 2 cars? They are formed using adjective. So for example, you want to say 1 teacher. So we have muallimun wahidun. And because it's adjective, you know that everything is matching. Okay, same thing goes with the second. You say muallimani ithnani. Again, same thing, the genders and everything's matching. So now the book did not give you the feminine. So I'll just mention what do you do with feminine. So if it was muallima, okay, you have muallima, what would you do? Wahidatun. You just make it into a feminine because they're an adjective. So for the second one, it would be muallimatani. What would be the number? Ithnatani. You just make it into feminine. You got it? So these are number 1 to 2. And from the 3 to 10, I think I've spent way too much time in this book explaining the numbers 3 to 10s. First of all, you have to know how do we make these two words side by side? What is the relationship? What is the construction? The first two is the adjective construction. For the 3 to 10, what is the construction? Who remembers? Yes, mudaf, mudaf ilayh. So it's idafa. As you can see, you have thalathatu. You cannot say thalathatun, right? Muallimin. So it is majrur because we've done this, right? Muallimuna, muallimuna. This is your nominative case. And muallimina is both majrur and mansub. Yes, because in idafa, the second word, it always has to be in the kasra. I think we've done this thing. If these things are not clear what I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure in the book, few units before we talked about this issue. These are called sound plural, masculine sound plural. So muallimuna, muallimina. Okay, here it will be muhandisina, muhandisuna, and muhandisina, right? So this is simply idafa construction. You cannot have tanwin here, okay? And this one has to be majrur, meaning in the kasra. So this is one thing to know. Second thing, what is another thing you have to know from 3 to 10 numbers when you deal with opposite gender? Excellent. So the muallim is masculine, right? Muallim is masculine. So look at the number we're using. We're using thalathatu. So what would have been the case if it was muallima, feminine? So it would be thalathu what? Muallimat. Thalathu. Because what? Muallima. Muallimat is plural of muallima. Muallimatun with the ta marbuta. So we use the opposite gender. Okay? Make sense, guys? All of these are same thing. Okay? So nothing changed until the 10th. Asharatu muallimina. And if it was feminine, you would say what? Asharu muallimatin for the feminine. Clear so far? Now comes what happens when we start talking about 11, 12, and moving forward. So for 11 and 12, whenever you're thinking about 1 and 2, just think about in terms of gender, this will always be like some kind of sifa, meaning like the gender has to match. Okay, so this is the one issue with the gender. So as you can see, muallim is masculine, both ashara and ahada they are all masculine as well. All of these numbers are masculine. Makes sense? For example, if it was muallima, you would say إحدى عشرة معلمة. Makes sense? So you see, you made this one feminine, you also made this one feminine. Why? Because the thing that you're describing is feminine. It's a little bit tricky. I'm not saying it's not. So I'm trying to give you some kind of idea so you can register in your mind, because the problem is that you have to, when you talk about numbers, you have to know two things. Number one is that you have to know the gender of the numbers you're using. This is one thing you have to tackle. Second thing you have to tackle is what? The construction. So the first one we said was the sifa construction. Second one, I mean, like 1 to 2 is the adjective. From 3 to 10 is idafa construction. And the rest from 11 all the way to 19, it would be some kind of construction that the best way, without explaining too much, you can think of that it will be a mabni state. Mabni state means that this haraka that you see, they will always be in this kind of situation. They will not change. It will always be ahada ashara, regardless what the state of these numbers are. For example, if you bring a harful jar preposition here, like you went to 5 teachers, whatever, right? So you say ila. What's going to happen with here? What this tamarbut will get? Kasra. It will get kasra because you have ila, so this one will get a kasra. But what we're saying here, that these numbers from 11 to 19, they will not, this haraka will never change because they're mabni. We have talked about mabni means that the ending does not change. It stays same regardless of what we say. Even if we say we went to the 11 teachers, you will always say ahada ashar. You're not going to put a kasra or anything. It will always remain the same. Numbers are tricky, guys. Okay. So second thing is, what is the construction between the number and then how do you form the thing that you're describing? It will always be in singular fatha state. So every time I explain numbers, it's just it's very difficult. So and it shouldn't be difficult. It's only difficult if we're learning everything at once. I hope that's not the case because we've dealt with these numbers before. Okay, we've dealt with 1, 2, 3, 5, and all of these things. So these things should be very easy, you're very comfortable with. But if you were to learn all of this from the beginning, then obviously it's just too much, right? So since you know all of them from 1 to 10, so that's great. And I'm not sure, I think we have also covered 11, 12 or something like that. But whatever it is, just make sure that you know the numbers and the thing that you're describing will always be in the mansub or the fatha state in a singular form. This is the way it is. Okay. So far so good. How would you contrast the difference between 1 and 2 and 11 and up? I mean, there's no one, it's not that easy that you can contrast between them. You might be tempted to think that all of them are adjective. No, it's not. 1 and 2 is very special case. Their adjective is very clear, right? But what happens is that from 11 and 12, not the rest, 11 and 12 has something similar with 1 and 2, which means that the gender will match. All of the number gender will match, just like an adjective. You're matching the gender here, right? And in 1 and 12, you're also matching the gender. Ahad is also masculine. Ashar is also masculine. And we mentioned to you what happens when you use the feminine. The ahad will become feminine, ihda, and then ashar will also become feminine, ashar with tamarbuta. Okay. Guys, there's a reason why they did not put the feminine here, because this book, that's one of the beauty of this book, is that it progresses you slowly. Jayid. Yes. So the question that you have from 11 and up until what? Until the 100, all of them will be mansub with a singular fatha. So 11 and up, not 100, like up until 100. So from 11 to 99, let's say, it will be always singular and mansub, meaning fatha. Okay, so you don't make it into plural. Yes, the tanwin is coming because why tanwin is coming? Tanwin is coming because when you have nakira, like indefinite, it will always be tanwin, right? this case, the ahada ashara, they are not tanwin because they are mabni, you know. So the mabni, you know, so in the grammar class, I can go much more in detail, explain what's going on with this number, but here I cannot. I don't know if when you guys were in my Ajurumia class where I actually went much more in details about these numbers. This is not that advanced class, so I'll just keep it simple. Okay, so 11 to 12, you say ahada ashara mualliman. So they're all stays the same. As you see, this haraka never changes regardless. So they're called mabni. They will remain the same. And for the 12, you say ithna ashara mualliman. If it was feminine, you would say ithnata asharata with a ta marbuta, mualliman. So I'm not going to write the feminine one. I'll just mention it because the book is not mentioning to you, right? So is it clear? No, here you cannot put a definite because this is how you have to. Just like when you ask somebody, like how many books, the rule is that you will say kam kitaban. You cannot put a definite. You cannot say al kitab. No, you cannot put anything else. This is a fixed rule. You say kam kitaban, kam qalaman. You understand? So this is the rule that we have to follow. So here, this is the same thing. You have to just follow this rule. Make sense? So now what happens with the 13 and forward? From the 13 forward, again, remember what I said, from 11 until 19, all of the numbers will be mabni. They will always be like this in fatha, no without tanwin, all of them, 11 to 19. Just remember that 11 to 19, they will always be in this fatha state. Okay, ثلاثة عشر, أربعة عشر. You can see all these numbers. خمسة عشر. Okay, ستة عشر. For example, can we put this number into a nominative case? Yes, like you can say the 14 teachers came. So ja'a means came. The 14 muallim came. So they should be in Dhamma, right? Because they're the file, they're the doer. No, in this number, they will always be in Fatha. So this is one thing to keep in mind, very important. So from the 13 and move going forward, what's going to happen is that the first number will be the opposite of the noun that you're describing. And the second number will match. One way to learn this thing is because, as you can see, there is some similarities between the 3 to 10 that we have studied. The 3 to 10, what happens? The number was what? Always opposite of what? Of the noun, right? So you have muallim, the masculine, you use the feminine number. Same thing happened, even though this is in 13, but you have a 3, anything number, the 3 to 9, it will follow the same rule. At least the first number will follow the same rule. The number will be opposite in the gender of the noun that you're describing. Makes sense? The second one will match. So that's why, because it's muallim, masculine, you say ثلاثة عشر معلما. ثلاثة with the ta marbuta, عشر معلما. So what would you say if it was feminine? You would say ثلاثة عشرة معلمة. You see what happens? Because muallima is a feminine, you have changed this number, this gender, and then you kept the other one. Okay, so one way or another, you have to get this thing into your system. And if it's taking long time, we are in the same boat. It took me a lot of time to get these numbers right. The rules, as you can see, it can get tricky. So at least you have to put something in your mind. One thing that I want you to put in your mind is this: the first number, the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, this number will always be opposite of the gender, regardless whether you see this number, whether you see number as a 3, or whether you see number as a 13, or whether you see number as 23, it doesn't matter. It will always be in the opposite. You have to put something in your mind so that at least slowly you build up. If you find like it's too complicated, but you're not putting anything in your mind, you're not learning anything, then it will always stay complicated. So at least one by one, you have to tackle them. Make sense, guys? Jade. So what we have is arbata ashara mualliman. So as you can see, opposite gender, they will always stay fatha. And if you want to say muallima, feminine, you will just convert the arba ta to arba'a, and then ashara. You just switch the gender. Make sense? So from up until 19, what happens? Up until 19, they're mabni, and it always stays a fatha. Then we have another set of numbers, which are like 20s, 30s, things like that. 20s, 30s. These number 20, 30, 40, 50, these are pretty easy in a way, because it will always be like Ashrun. Ashrun is the only thing maybe it's kind of weird. Ashrun means 20, sounds like Ashara, but Ashrun means 20. And then you have Thalathun from the Thalatha. You just make it into plural by, sound plural. Thalathun, Arba'un, Khamsun, Sittun, Sab'un, okay, Thamanun, like this, un. So this would be same for masculine or feminine, doesn't matter. This Ashrun cannot change to some other feminine form. So Ashrun will always stay Ashrun, and then you just add whatever the noun you are describing. Ashruna mualliman, and you say the Ashruna muallimatan. Same thing. At least this thing I want you to put in your mind, that the 20s, 30s, 40s, very easy. Just tell yourself it's easy. If you think it's hard, you will always think it's hard. At least put this thing in your mind that the 20s, 30s, 40s, these kind of numbers are extremely easy. And they are. So you say Ashrun, Thalathun, Arbaun, Khamsun, Sittun, Sabun, Thamanun, Tis'un. All of them will be same regardless of the gender. And then, of course, this rule you already know, that you will be using this kind of form. Whether it's a mualliman, muallimatan, muhandisan, tabiban, doesn't matter. No, I'm just talking about the Ashrun right now. Meaning I'm talking about the number of the divisible by 10, like 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm not talking about 21, 22, 23. I'm just talking about 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. How do you say these kind of numbers? These kind of numbers are very easy. Okay. You make it a shurun, thalathun, arbaun, and then mualliman or muallimatan. Very simple. So now what do you do with the numbers that in between? Like you say 21, 22, 23. Honestly, this is not too bad. This is not too bad, because two things you have to know, like these numbers are completely separate. So as you can see, just like in English, we say 21. See, the word 20 is there, right? And then you say 1. 31, the word 30 is there. We say 30, 31, 32. So the number 30 is always there. In Arabic, it's exactly the same thing. The Ishrun is there. Okay, so everything 22, the Ishrun is still there, because Ishrun is the one that is making into 20. And then just like in English, you just say the number. Only difference is that you said the opposite way, right? You said 21, here's a 1 and 20. Literally, you're saying 1 and. Wow is very important. If you don't say wow, it's not going to work. So you say wahidun. See, it's completely independent. Wahidun, it's not idafa, it's completely a number by itself. Wahidun wa ashruna mualliman. Makes sense? اثنان وعشرون معلما ثلاثة وعشرون معلما. So these are independent numbers, just like in English. So if you think from the English perspective, I think you will be fine. So what happens with the gender? Exactly what I told you. Number 1 and 2, this number will always match the noun. So we have wahidun. Why is saying wahidun, not wahidatun? Because the muallim, which is masculine. Ithnani, why not ithnathani? Because of muallim. So what do you think you are going to say if you are saying 21 female teachers, muallimatan? You will just make this one into feminine. Wahidatun wa ishruna. Remember, ishrun cannot change. Ishrun does not have feminine form. So this, you're lucky. We're lucky. So that means ishrun will always stay ishrun. So you will say wahidatun wa ishruna. Wahidatun wa ishruna what? Muallimatan. Yeah, so these will change. These will change based on the situation. All of this will change based on the situation. If it is wahidatin, and ishruna can be ishrin, because this ishruna, I don't want to get into that one right now. It's a good question. I was trying to avoid the question and just move forward, because you also have to know how to make the ishrun into majrur or fatha in this kind of form. Yeah, so you can say ishrun. Sometimes you'll hear people say ishrin. Why do they say ishrin? They're saying 20 because it will be either in the genitive form, like in the kasra, or accusative form, which is the fatha. Okay, so don't worry too much of it's like too much. Honestly, it is too much. I don't like this number business, to be honest with you, but it's too much. So let's right now stick with this. But yes, they will change. Only thing you have mabni is number 11 to 19. Make sense? Now, so from anything, whether you say 31, 21, 33, 23, 43, these numbers are pretty straightforward. You say the number and you say wa, and then the multiple of 10, whichever it is. So if you want to say 33, what are you going to say? How would you say 33? You say muallim, you say what? Huh? ثلاثة وثلاثون معلما. My handwriting. You understand? Very simple. Why would you think it's simple? Because of two things. Just remember two things. These numbers are just like in English. You say 21, 22, just like we have the 20 and the independent number in Arabic is the same thing. You just do it opposite. Another thing you have to know is that the same rule follows, which is the number has to be opposite of the gender. For 3 to 9 all the way, and the 1 and 2 always. Another thing, keep in your mind, that's what I said in the beginning, 1 and 2 will always be matching the gender of the noun, always. And the other numbers from 3 to 9 will always be opposite gender. If you can at least put this thing in your head, at least you're improving your number skills, because it's a lot. Make sense, guys? And then another one that they gave us is 100, which is mi'a. So the mi'a is very interesting. Mi'a is also very easy, but easy, just make sure you know two things. Number one, it will be, what kind of construction you see here? Yes, it is idafa, mudaf, mudaf ilayh. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the mi'a, the gender does not change. Feminine, you say mi'atu muallimatin. Okay, it will always be the same. Another thing I want you to know, this is one of the peculiar word or peculiar spelling, because remember what I said, if you have alif in any word, the letter before letter, I mean the haraka, what is the haraka? Needs to be, must, it's obligation to be what? Fatha. It always should be fatha. But as far as I know, this is the only word that has an exception. You have alif, but you have a kasra, but this alif is not pronounced. So there's an alternate spelling for this one without the alif. Okay, you sometimes will also find this one, mi'a. If you say mi'a, 100 by itself, of course you say mi'atun, but if you want to say 100 teachers, then you will put it into idafa form. Guys, I know there's a lot to learn, but hopefully you're getting something. And as you can see, that you have to work on with yourself and find which way to get some of these rules in your system, at least get some of them one by one. I think the easiest one for now should be 1 and 2. You should know this by now. If you don't know how to say 1 and 2, it's a problem. It's simple adjective. Second thing, 3 to 10, we've done so many times. We talked about so many times. This should also be in your system. We've done so many times. Then what I want you to know is that the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, these are also extremely simple. Okay, so because it is just ashrun, thalathun, arbaun, and there's no difference between the masculine and feminine. And then slowly add the other ones and build your understanding. And I think the next would be the 21, 22, 23, these things, not the 11 ones in terms of difficulties. Like 31, 32. These are very simple. Honestly, these are very simple. Any questions so far, guys? It's difficult, I know, but I just feel like you have to spend a little bit time alone, one on one, deal with, let's sit with the numbers and see what you can get out of it. Jayid.